Welcome to The Explainer. Have you ever wondered if there's a hidden current pulling beneath the daily headlines? Well, today we're going to objectively break down a highly debated and viral political critique from the YouTube channel Spark News UK. We're unpacking a sweeping theory that challenges basically everything you thought you knew about British democracy. Whether you're a hardcore follower of UK politics or just kind of fascinated by the hidden mechanics of power, stick around. We are going to map out exactly what this source claims is actually happening behind closed doors.
Okay, let's dive right into this. The source introduces a central, deeply provocative mystery straight out of the gate. Who actually runs the country? Because according to this critique, it isn't your elected officials, it's a secretive think tank steering Britain from the shadows. The theory suggests this group operates completely quietly in the background, structurally pulling the strings. But why? Well, the original material argues they are responsible for a rapid cultural and political demise, a massive transformation of shifting societal norms and eroding traditions that they say is 100% by design. To make sense of these sweeping claims, we're going to break this down step by step. The core premise, the origins of this group, their strategy of gradualism, how all this applies to modern politics, and finally, the ultimate warning. Let's get to it.
Starting with part 1, the core premise. Let's define exactly who is being accused of pulling these strings.
The original material zeroes in on an organization known as the Fabian Society, and the core allegation here is intense. They argue this socialist think tank is the hidden hand responsible for a highly coordinated shift in British society. The critique asserts that this group has had a master plan in place for a very, very long time, quietly orchestrating everything from open borders to new ideologies. I mean, imagine every major political headline you read being orchestrated from a single hidden room. That is the sheer scale of the claim being made here. Moving on to part 2, origins and shifting symbols. Because to understand how they could allegedly pull this off, the source argues we have to look way back at their very beginnings. The Fabian Society is not a new kid on the block. According to the source material, it was founded 141 years ago, back in 1884. To really grasp the significance of this, you have to picture Britain at this specific moment in history. On the outside, the glittering British Empire was at the absolute peak of its global power, right? They controlled nearly a quarter of the world's population. But internally, the reality was starkly different. The country was cracking under the smog-filled, highly unequal reality of industrial Britain. Working-class people had virtually no political voice, and the old aristocratic system was incredibly unstable. And it was in this exact pressure cooker environment that a small group of intellectuals formed the society with a highly specific long-term vision for change. And the source brilliantly illustrates their tactics by looking at the evolution of their logos, which is presented as proof of a patient, deeply deceptive evolution. It actually began with a tortoise, carrying the motto, "When I strike hard," which represents the slow, methodical patience. Then, the original material argues, it literally morphed into a wolf in sheep's clothing. I mean, an outright admission of hiding radical goals behind a friendly, harmless front. And today, they use a simple, sterile red square. The theory suggests this modern corporate rebrand is intentional camouflage. It's designed to look so incredibly boring and neutral that the public doesn't even look twice, allowing them to operate completely undetected. All right, part 3, the strategy of gradualism. Let's look at the actual mechanics of how this power is allegedly seized over time. The logic here is pretty simple. Why burn down the system when you can simply inherit it? The original material draws a really sharp contrast between two vastly different methods of achieving a socialist society. The theory suggests the Fabians had absolutely zero interest in traditional, dramatic revolutions with riots and barricades, because those approaches just burned too hot and died much too quickly. Instead, they opted for Fabian gradualism. The argument here is that by deliberately and quietly embedding their ideas into permanent state institutions, like schools and courts, over decades, they could fundamentally control the country's direction without ever needing to fire a single shot. And that brings us to a crucial concept, permeation. The theory argues that the Fabians realized a profound truth. Politicians come and go, and public moods swing wildly with every single election, but the permanent state machinery? That remains untouched. You know that feeling when, no matter which party is in power, the country's overall direction never really seems to change? Well, this theory claims that is entirely by design. It's allegedly the direct result of a strategy focused on openly influencing society from within, embedding people and ideas into the very bedrock of the state, rather than just trying to win at the ballot box. And here are the specific permanent institutions the source claims have been targeted. By placing ideological allies in these key pillars, we're talking the civil service, the judiciary, academia, and media boards, the society allegedly outlasts any single election cycle. The claim is that they create an invisible cage of rules, regulations, and ideologies that politicians are literally forced to follow. According to the critique, this effectively rips real, tangible power away from your elected MPs in Parliament and drops it directly into the hands of unelected bureaucrats who already share the Fabian worldview.
Which brings us to part 4, modern political allegations. Let's fast forward and see exactly how this historical theory is mapped onto today's political landscape. To back this up, the source drops a massive historical claim regarding the modern Labour Party. The argument isn't just that the Fabian Society influenced Labour, but that they are the very DNA of it. They supposedly ensure the party serves as a permanent vehicle for their long-term goals. The original material emphasizes that every single Labour prime minister in history, from Clement Attlee to Tony Blair all the way to Gordon Brown, has been officially affiliated with the Fabian Society. The critique insists this is definitely not a coincidence. To them, it's undeniable proof that these intellectuals successfully infused their overarching worldview into the absolute highest levels of British government. So what about the cultural battles you see in the headlines today? Things like wokeism, open borders, expansion of the welfare state, digital IDs? The original critique alleges that these aren't just random, disconnected policies. They are presented as a highly calculated Fabian blueprint. The goal? To deliberately destabilize traditional norms and fracture national cohesion. The theory suggests that by breaking down these structures, individuals become increasingly reliant on a massive welfare state. And ultimately, power is allegedly shifted away from families and local communities and handed over entirely to the centralized state institutions that the societies claimed control. The critique then profiles current political figures, starting right at the top with Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Interestingly, they don't view Starmer as some evil mastermind orchestrating everything from the shadows. Instead, they label him the instrument. With his deep roots in the legal establishment and what they call a rule-by-administration approach, he's presented as the perfect bureaucratic vessel to execute the early stages of this massive agenda. The source claims his globalist institutional mindset makes him exactly the type of leader required to push the Fabian blueprint forward at this precise moment in history. Now, what's really interesting about this strategy is the alleged role of Lucy Powell. The source labels her the insurance policy. She is positioned further to the left, and the theory suggests she's deeply aligned with the Fabian inner circle. According to this critique, she was placed in her current role as an ideological backup plan, ready to be activated and replace Starmer the exact second the public loses faith and he becomes a political liability. It's framed as a fail-safe mechanism, just to ensure the broader agenda continues uninterrupted, regardless of who is technically sitting in the Prime Minister's chair. Then you have Shabana Mahmood, who is dubbed the pressure valve. When public anger boils over on incredibly sensitive issues like grooming gangs, the original critique argues she is deliberately deployed to make hardline public statements. But according to the source, this isn't a genuine shift in policy or a change of heart. It's allegedly a highly calculated release of steam to prevent a massive public rebellion, while simultaneously protecting the core voting blocs the party relies on. The theory frames this as a masterful manipulation of public sentiment, just to maintain long-term control. Finally, Sadiq Khan is characterized as the demographic engineer. The allegation here is that London has actually served as a massive, real-world testing ground for the Fabian future. By rapidly diversifying the population, expanding surveillance, and allegedly conditioning the public to accept digital control and manage decline, the source theorizes his job is essentially complete. The critique suggests he has successfully set the cultural and infrastructural stage in the capital, paving the way for those exact same policies to be rolled out across the rest of the country. Okay, bringing us to part 5, the final warning. Having laid out the key players and the historical strategy, what exactly is the ultimate endgame here? The source outlines a pretty chilling domino effect if this trajectory continues unchecked. It starts with democratic power weakening as unelected institutions fully take the reins. That inevitably triggers step 2, economic freedom shrinking rapidly under the massive weight of state regulation and dependency. By step 3, cultural cohesion deeply fractures, leaving a divided country. Step 4 makes speaking out against this system professionally and socially dangerous. And it all crashes into step 5, a total, irreversible shift towards socialism, which the original critique argues was the Fabian Society's day one foundational goal all along. Bringing this all the way full circle, the critique reminds us of that original tortoise's motto, "When I strike hard." The urgent warning here is that after 140 years of slow, methodical permeation, the Fabian Society is finally done waiting.
The rapid cultural shocks, new legislation, and massive societal shifts we're seeing right now, the source claims that is the tortoise finally striking. The theory argues that the foundation has been completely laid, and the gradual phase is officially over, making way for rapid, unstoppable transformation.
Which leaves us with one final massive question. Is this theory of gradual institutional capture actually reshaping the future of British democracy? The creators at Spark News UK certainly believe the trap has already been spun and the machinery is in full motion. We've mapped out their evidence today, from the smog-filled origins of 1884 to the highest offices of modern politics. Now it's your turn to thoughtfully weigh the evidence of these sweeping claims for yourself. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and always keep questioning what you see.